Hello, Oklahoma County. My name is Christopher Johnston. Now, this is the third video in a row that you've seen me with this lovely green shirt. It's very comfortable, by the way. I just did a back-to-back-to-back trifecta episodes. Why? Because I'm an extremely busy man. I love being around my family, and I just got to get things out and done and then send them out when it's ready, right? So here we go. I have covered various things from what the Oklahoma County Justice Project is, of what the idea of it is to create a book. It's to create, again, Oklahoma County Justice Project information campaign, where you get a different voice. You get the voice from me. I look at things a little bit differently than a lot of the activists I've done work at. So it's just a different perspective, right? And it's a retelling of stuff that may get lost in the whole cacophony of noise on social media and excuse me, everything like that. Also, the Oklahoma County Jail Project, which is the book that I'm going to be writing, as well as the website that's going to be kind of partnering with it, or one or the other, whichever comes first. One-stop shop where you can look up all the documents that are public record. You can look up various stories that people have said, protecting all personal information. Everybody from whistleblowers are going to be protected, but we can at least summarize what's going on, just so the public can know what's going on. I want this thing to go international, because reality, or national, international, because reality is we're fighting as hard as we can locally, and it's we're in mud right now. We're stagnant, and maybe this is something that gets a couple of people extra motivated, might strike up some courage within the federal government, which I have no faith in doing anything about it, but maybe something might happen. But at the very least, the information's going to come out. People are going to know the truth. Today, I want to cover, and this is going to be the last one I do of the trifecta episodes. We are on, I think this is episode 6. Yes, episode 6. I'm going to talk about Ukraine. Why it's important, from my perspective, and just looking at things. One of the things I come in is I'm unlike most of the activist community. That's very visible, is most of them have never served in the military, at least from the ones I've worked around, right? They haven't served in the military. They haven't studied or know as much in depth about like geopolitical stuff that I have a certain unique perspective from. It's not to say I'm the only person, but it's like I just come with a different way of looking at things. And all of us working together with our different opinions, different ideas, boom, helps paint the picture. Yeah, the only way that this is, I think, going to end well is Ukraine is going to have to push Russia out. They're going to have to take back Crimea, which is, as General Milley called it, the only way that this is going to end in a favorable way for Ukraine, and I'm paraphrasing him, is a lot of Russian lives are going to have to be lost. It's absolutely, I believe that that's absolutely true. Now, General Milley, who was a brilliant general, strategist and everything like that, a Green Beret, I'll let you know, Special Forces, he was a Tier 1 force. Tier 1 is like Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Army, MARSOC, Marines, Green Berets, Special Forces, people like that, Rangers. Those are Tier 1 operators, Tier 1 forces. I had the pleasure of, when I was overseas, to work with, particularly with Green Berets. They're really cool. Special Forces are pretty awesome. But here's the thing. General Milley knew what he was talking about. You have people who've never had to really command things at that level running the government. Hegseth, he was in the military. I'm not going to knock his service, and thank you for your service, Mr. Hegseth. I think that's how you say his last name, Secretary of Defense. But beyond that, sir, you're completely incompetent. He's completely incompetent. He's nothing just but a shill for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. That's what it is. What's happening is that the intelligence community has been telling us since before Donald Trump was elected, that the Russians were involved in messing with elections. Now, mind you, if you ever read about Russian history, um, and just even pre-World War II, they've always been about misinformation, right? Because there has been this obsession with trying to be not just accepted as Europeans, but and it is really weird if you read up in it. But there's also this weird obsession of wanting to conquer Europe in a way. They never had the military to do it, or the resources. They may have a lot of guys, with weapons, but the Brits and everybody else, it's got tanks and planes. Like that's kind of how it's always been, right? If you think about it, they most of the bombing in the Battle of Berlin in World War II was the Royal Air Force and some American Army Air Corps, or commonly called the Air Force. Air Force was formed in the 1950s after World War II. They didn't have those kind of resources, right? I mean, and we all know the history of Germany, was really hitting Russia hard. But if you remember, Russia was the ally with Germany. It was self-serving. Germany was the most powerful war machine in Europe. And essentially the idea was we can use Germany as basically like pawns to help us push our agenda. They wanted Ukraine. Russia wanted Ukraine, this and that and this and that. Ukraine's called the breadbasket of Europe. Right? And you can grow anything there. And, excuse me. And there's like Czechoslovakia, very important places. But if you look at things, Russia's always been about furthering Russia's agenda, just like any other nation. Right? But what's that nation? That nation was to destabilize Europe so that they're considered the main power. It's been like that since before they were the USSR, when they were the USSR, and now when they're the USSR. I'm sorry, now when they're the Russian Federation. I see no difference. They're still the USSR. I mean, for crying out loud, you got former heads of the KGB, Putin, the KGB in charge. Anyway, so that's always been their thing. They've been great. The Russians, they've done the research and they found out that the whole AIDS thing, they were talking about how AIDS, which spread amongst within the black community. By the way, I'm not making this up. This is, look it up. This is came from Moscow. The Kremlin created the lie about what? About AIDS being a manufactured disease for white people to kill black people. Because during the AIDS epidemic, a lot of black folk were getting sick. A lot of people were getting sick, right? Because he didn't know what it was. Thank you, Dr. Fauci, for all the work you did on fighting AIDS. Look it up. That man was very instrumental. Republicans, look it up. So, but here's the thing. So they've always spread misinformation. Russia has. And all of us have done PSYOPs, psychological operations. And even when I was in the Army, there were some things I did with, Army intelligence and everything like that. And I've done missions with PSYOPs and everything, psychological operations. I get it. There's some things that you do, right? That are self-serving for your military, for your country. So they've done that. They've always tried to destabilize Europe, right? They've made things up. They also are linked to. They're still kind of looking this up, but they're also linked to the whole chemtrail things. It's not real. That was made up. That was manufactured. They were behind fanning the flames of the whole Pizzagate thing, where the Democrats are doing the whole pedophile ring and everything like that. Yeah, that has Moscow written all over it. And guess what? Moscow, all of our intelligence agencies, caught the Kremlin interfering with our elections. They've interfered with the Britain's elections. They've interfered with the French. They've interfered with all of these other nations. Russia is investing in other countries that the West has abandoned. African nations, various other things. So is Iran, China. They're creating They're coming together and building their forces. This is why the West should have not ignored nations like Haiti simply because you hate black people. That's really the only reason why we haven't done anything in Haiti. Haiti's like right there, right next to us. We've done nothing. We've allowed the Dominicans to try to ethnically cleanse them. You ought to look that up. That is a terrible, terrible thing. I've been to the Dominican Republic a couple of times, and I've seen how they've talked about how they've treated Haitians. It's awful. I care not to. Probably never going to go back to that place. Beautiful country, but that whole island of Hispaniola is unique, rich history. Haiti's the only colonized nation that's pushed out Europeans by force. Pushed the French out. No one else has done that. I don't know. Maybe they got blackballed by the West, but nonetheless, they've been abandoned. So you got all these nations. Cuba. We've consistently just dumped on Cuba, right? Look, there was some dumping that Cuba did too, but come on, we've done a lot. Well, guess what? Well, of course Russia is going to be cozy up. Look up the Bay of Pigs. Look up the nuclear scare. We almost went to nuclear war in the 60s, the Russians. Anyway, all of that to say that there's always been conflict. The fall of the Berlin Wall, there was like a short snippet of peace, and then business as usual. Putin is trying to restore the USSR, or even go beyond that. I personally think he's trying to push Russia into taking over Europe. I joke around sometimes and say that Russia has created a new political office called the Office of Western Expansion. And its leaders are, and its members are, Donald Trump, the Vice President, Musk, and the Secretary of Defense. But you maybe even can throw in Tulsi Gabbard. They're Russian assets. Now, that's not an agent. Look up what an asset is. It means somebody that's helpful. That's it. They're Russian assets. Our president's a Russian asset. Our government is ran by Moscow, or at least people who love Moscow. It needs to be run by Americans. Just like Moscow needs to be run by Russians. Just like whatever country needs to be run by their own people. Right? Working in collaboration with the world community. Invading Ukraine has been disastrous. There's been amazing things that's happened. Ukraine has revolutionized warfare. This is something I've pointed out to even one of my hardcore conservative friends. I said, look, the Ukrainians have revolutionized warfare in the use of drones and the use of guerrilla warfare. It has been amazing what they've been able to do. And just like when we stuck it to the old Soviet Union by teaching the Mujahideen to fight, we need to stick it with the Ukrainians. The war to keep Russia from pushing in and trying to invade other countries that don't want them to invade them is happening right now. And we have people worried about whether Zelensky's got a damn suit on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that's nonsense. We need to be worried about this stuff. We need to understand how our military allies are important. You see, Americans speak from a point of privilege. Now, there's a lot of things that are messed up in America. I'm not naive, I'm not an idiot. But Americans, we're pretty spoiled in some things. You have no idea what it's like being in a developing nation where there's no vaccines. I've been there. It's not a good feeling, right? It's not good to see babies crippled by polio and dying, coughing up blood from whooping cough and stuff like that. It's pretty nasty. We don't have that in the States. At least we weren't having it. Now we're seeing all these anti-vaxxer nutbags. And now they're wondering why their kids are getting the measles and getting scarred up or hurt or sick. Or take the darn shot. So, the thing is that the forces of Russia and everybody like that, they're trying to destabilize the West, trying to destabilize our country. It's pretty obvious. I'm predicting in probably a short time, we're going to start providing money and military aid to Russia if things keep going the way that it is. But let me come back to how America speaks from a point of privilege. Think about it like this. Here's the United States. Above us is Canada. Below us is Mexico. We have been some of the closest partnerships with those countries, right? For the most part, it's been very close. So we have close relationship right there. And then we have two oceans on either side. Nobody's invading us. Nobody's invading us. Nobody's invading us. Nobody's invading us, right? So when Ukraine is talking about we need help, they're being invaded. You don't have that, Mr. Bob sipping coffee at a Starbucks, or Susie sitting at a computer. You don't have somebody with a gun trying to kill you, invading you. I'm sorry. You can miss me with all of that nonsense of we don't need to do this because we need to be anti-war. I'm sorry. You don't have somebody invading you. You don't. Be thankful for that. Because I've been in 2 wars. I've fought in 2 wars. It's ugly. It is ugly. And I don't wish that on anyone. Even my enemies. I don't wish that on anybody. And that's real talk. I can get animated sometimes, but it's disgusting. It's horrible. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes there are bad people that just gotta go because they're hurting other people. They're blowing up kids. They're doing whatever. And don't take my words out of context. Don't come in here and be like, oh, so you support Israel with Palestine? No, I do not support Israel ethnically cleansing and committing genocide. Nope. No. Crimes against humanity, what's happening there. I'm just talking about Ukraine right now. Supporting Ukraine is vital to our self-defense. Vital to our self-defense. But you need to get educated on history to understand why we should be on Ukraine's side. Why we should still be giving them weapons, equipment, whatever we can, because there's certain treaties that dictate certain things that we can and can't do. It gets a little complicated. It's what it is. I know it gets, because we can't quite provide planes because that'll violate a treaty and everything like that. It's complicated, right? But that's stuff we can provide. Because Ukraine is fighting North Korea and Russia. Because they've brought in, I think it was 20,000 or something, North Korean troops to help on the front lines. Because Russia was getting their butts whipped. I mean, Russia is basically, is if they had any more support, Ukraine had any more support, Russia would just start pulling back. Because they cannot maintain their positions. They're getting beat. But if you don't provide support, eventually the Russian war machine will come in and push these people out. And then all of a sudden, you've got Finland, you got all these people. Poland is like, boy, we've seen this before. You know, an invading force coming our way. Folks, we are on the brink of World War III if we're not careful. We are on the brink of World War III. Right now, the U.S. is not looking like the good guys. So I love my country. I love the people here. All political parties, even though sometimes y'all get on my nerves, Republicans and Democrats. But I love my country, and we need to understand the importance of it and get out of our circles of just thinking the way we just think all the time. Well, we shouldn't do this because of that. No, let's end all war. I'm sorry, that's just not feasible. Sometimes war has to happen, and it should only be the last resort. That doesn't make me a war hawk. It doesn't make me, oh, Chris is a sellout. No. I'm grown up. It's what it is. Things just happen. War should be the last resort. But when war comes knocking, you have to be ready to kick ass. You just have to be ready. And you have to be willing to protect your allies. Because ultimately, they keep us protected. Through cyber warfare, through whatever. It gets complicated. You gotta look it up. How NATO has been the most successful organization ever in keeping peace. Because you think war's bad now? Why don't you go read a history book? It was horrible. Horrible. I'm talking people were just murking people were just murdering people left and right in various other countries. Then World War II happened. You want to know how many people died in World War II? 80 million people died from just combat. I'll have to check those numbers. It's something like that. That's a lot of people that injured, that died to sickness and everything because of the result of war. We're not even talking about, to my knowledge, we're not even talking about the lasting impacts of the bombs that we dropped from either side, the nuclear stuff. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about what happened during the conflict. It's a lot of people. Holocaust, the Japanese invading the Chinese, the Russians fighting against the Japanese, because they're right next to China. I mean, they were also involved in the Pacific Theater. It was mostly American forces and Australian and everything. Australia would have been taken over by Japan if it wasn't for us. So, guys, read your history. Understand why NATO is important. Understand why defending Ukraine is important. And why we should urge our elected officials do everything that we can so that we can keep sending them aid. All right? Ukraine is important. No one deserves to be invaded by a dictator. Plain and simple. Oklahoma County, I love you. You're beautiful, and you are worth it.